Amara was 12 when her father remarried a woman who never once called her by name. Only her, or sometimes the child. Since her mother's death, her father had changed. He laughed less, spoke softer, and often seemed more like a shadow than a man. Not just absent in time, but in spirit. As if something in Amara's eyes reminded him of a past he couldn't face. Something too dark. On the day of the wedding, Amara wore a light blue dress her mother had once bought for her in a small boutique where they were the only black customers. She had never worn it before. Her father barely looked up when she walked down the stairs. No compliment. No smile. Just a short nod. Her new stepmother wore white, bold red lipstick and eyes as cold as glass. When she looked at Amara for the first time, she smiled. But it was the kind of smile you give a stranger you hope won't speak. From the moment they met, Amara knew something was wrong. Her stepmother never looked her in the eye. The smile that warmed her father's face froze whenever it turned in Amara's direction. And the house, it felt colder than it should. Big windows, warm wood floors, sunlight filtering through lace curtains, and still, it felt like a museum. Beautiful, quiet, and not meant for her. During the first month, her stepmother barely said anything, but her silence wasn't empty. It was loud. When Amara combed her hair at the kitchen table, she saw her stepmother wrinkle her nose. When she laughed at something silly on TV, the woman's eyes would narrow. And when she asked for simple things, shampoo, school supplies, a hug, she got the same clipped response every time. Ask your father. Her father was working longer hours then, always at the office or in a meeting. He didn't seem to notice the frost that was forming in the corners of their home. Or maybe he did. Maybe he just didn't want to face it. On Sundays, the three of them would watch TV together, but Amara was never asked what she wanted to see. Her stepmother always picked soap operas, reality shows, news, and if Amara asked questions, even innocent ones, like, "Who's that?" the woman would sigh and mutter, "Maybe if you paid more attention in school, you'd understand." Always with a smile. But it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was the kind of smile that cuts. At school, Amara tried to stay strong. She kept her head high, but her smile thinned out. Her eyes grew dimmer. A teacher once asked if she was okay. Amara nodded and whispered, "I'm fine," with the kind of voice she had learned from her father. Quiet, guarded, slippery. At night, she overheard whispers through the walls. Her stepmother on the phone, murmuring things like, "I don't feel safe with her here." Or worse, "She's different. Difficult. There's just something off." And then laughter. A short, sharp laugh that made Amara press her pillow tighter over her ears. One afternoon, she sat quietly on the stairs, legs tucked to her chest, while her stepmother spoke to a friend in the kitchen. "You should see her. That hair. Those eyes. Always watching. Honestly, she gives me chills." Amara didn't move. She just listened. Each word sank deeper, like stones in a riverbed. Heavy. Cold. Settling into silence. Her father never said anything back. He was there, his shoes in the hallway, his plate at the table, but never really there. He nodded a lot, sometimes sighed, and Amara kept hoping. Maybe tomorrow he'll speak up. Maybe he'll see it. But tomorrow came, and tomorrow went, and nothing ever changed. Until one night. It started small. A glass fell from the counter and shattered on the floor. Amara jumped, instinctively reaching down to clean it. Before she could touch it, her stepmother snatched it up and placed it on the counter. Then she turned slowly, looked Amara in the eyes for the first time in weeks, and said, clear enough to wound, "I don't want a black child in my house." The words hit harder than a slap. They were calm, measured, not screamed in rage, but spoken like fact, like she was simply naming something broken on the floor. Amara froze. Her eyes flicked to the doorway. Her father had just walked in, his bag still in hand. He heard it. She could tell. The tiny shift in his shoulders, the way he hesitated. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, there was something like shame, or fear, or both. But still, he said nothing. Not a word. Just silence. And in that silence, something inside Amara shattered. Not with noise, but with clarity. He wasn't against her, but he had never stood for her either. And somehow, that was worse. In the days after that night, something changed in the air around Amara. It wasn't loud. There were no fights, no shouting, just a tightening, like the walls had moved in closer, like the ceiling pressed lower. Every sound felt sharp, every glance a wound. Her stepmother carried on as if nothing had happened, as if those words had just dissolved into the walls. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge it. But something in her was different now. Bolder, colder. She walked past Amara like she wasn't there, not ignoring her. No, that would have taken effort. She acted as though Amara didn't exist at all. Her father never mentioned it, not once. He went to work, came home late, ate in silence. He asked how school was, but not in a way that required an answer. Just out of habit, like a line in a script he no longer believed in. Amara stopped speaking unless she had to. Her voice felt like it didn't belong in that house anymore. She would tiptoe around the kitchen, keep her headphones in during dinner, retreat to her room as soon as she could. But even her room didn't feel like hers anymore. Her stepmother had started cleaning it while she was gone, moving things around, throwing things away without asking. Her photos disappeared from the nightstand. Her scented lotion vanished from the bathroom. Little by little, the signs that she lived there were erased. At school, teachers started noticing. Her English teacher asked if she was tired. Her math teacher emailed home, saying Amara had stopped raising her hand in class. But what could they do? She kept her answers short, her eyes down. "I'm just tired," she'd say. No one knew what tired truly meant. Her smile had gone from weak to missing. Her laughter had become a memory. She walked through hallways like someone underwater, seeing everything, hearing everything, but not truly part of it. Then came the phone call. One night, Amara was walking down the hallway when she heard her stepmother on the phone again, her voice hushed, but sharp. "She doesn't belong here. I don't feel safe with her in this house. She watches me like she's waiting for something. And the way she looks, it's not normal." Amara stopped in her tracks. She wasn't surprised anymore. Not really. The words didn't sting like they used to, but they still left a mark. Not because they were new, but because they were said so casually, so freely, as if it was the most natural thing in the world to want her gone. Later that night, Amara sat on the stairs, knees pulled to her chest, just listening. Her stepmother was laughing now, pouring wine with a friend over. "Honestly, I feel like I'm living with a stranger, and not just any stranger. You know, that kind. Always sulking, never smiling. You know the type." Her voice dropped. "If she were mine, I'd send her away. But she's not. And that's the problem." Amara didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just stood up, quietly went to her room, and packed a sweater into her backpack. No plan. No note. No shoes, even. Just her sneakers. Just movement. Like her body knew before her mind did. She had to leave. She slipped out the front door sometime after midnight. The air was cold, but it wasn't as cold as that house. The wind bit at her skin, but it was gentler than her stepmother's gaze. She walked, without knowing where, past empty houses, quiet porches, flickering street lamps. She passed the corner store where her mom used to buy her mango juice. She passed the church where her parents got married. She passed everything that used to mean something, and now meant nothing at all. By dawn, she was sitting on a bench near the park. Her legs ached, her hands were numb, but she had made it through the night. An old woman walked by with a small dog in a sweater. She looked at Amara and smiled kindly. "You've got the most beautiful eyes," she said. Amara blinked. She didn't say thank you. She couldn't. Her throat was tight, her lips dry. But inside, deep, deep inside, those words landed, like a seed, like a spark. The first kind word she had heard in days. She sat there long after the woman was gone, just breathing. The sky was slowly turning gold. The city yawned awake. And Amara sat still, one hand in her pocket, one on her lap. She didn't know where she'd go next. She didn't know who would help. But she knew this. She was not going back. Not to that house. Not to those stairs. Not to the silence that swallowed her voice. When Amara didn't show up at school that morning, her absence triggered quiet alarms. One of the teachers noticed. So did the lunch lady, who always saved her an apple. And then there was Mrs. Else, the elderly neighbor from 2 doors down, who recognized her sitting alone on a park bench, hours before the world properly woke up. Mrs. Else didn't ask questions. She just handed Amara a warm drink in a paper cup and said, "Let's get you somewhere safe, sweetheart." It was the first time in days that someone referred to her like she mattered. Amara was taken to a local support center, just a small building near the edge of town. But inside it felt different. No sharp eyes, no quiet cruelty, just a counselor with warm tea and a voice that didn't rush. The room had blankets folded in corners, soft light, and books with names she hadn't heard before. It wasn't home, but it also wasn't that house. And for now, that was enough. They asked her questions, but gently. Not like an interrogation, more like someone sweeping shattered glass piece by piece. She didn't tell them everything, just pieces. Just the words she could actually say out loud without falling apart. "She doesn't want me there. My dad, he just lets it happen. It's not safe." That was all it took. The school counselor had already filed a concern. Now, with Amara's own quiet confession, youth protection stepped in. Temporary placement, observation, stability. For the first time in her life, someone said the words she had never heard in her own home. "You have the right to feel safe." That night, she stayed in a small care home with 4 other girls. One had a scar on her lip and a laugh too big for her face. Another kept a stuffed animal by her side at all times. No one asked why she was there. No one judged her silence. They simply welcomed her with a plate of pasta and a blanket that smelled like lavender. She didn't cry that night, but she did breathe. Deep. Full. Like her lungs were finally allowed to expand. 2 days passed. Then her father showed up. She saw him through the window before he knocked, standing stiffly outside, hands in his pockets, wearing the same coat he always wore to court dates and funerals. He looked tired. Not just from lack of sleep, but from years of avoiding things that mattered. The social worker opened the door and led him inside. He sat across from her, and for the first time in a long while, their eyes met without anything in between. No walls, no hallway distance, no stepmother watching. He spoke first. "I've been looking for you." She didn't respond. He cleared his throat. "I didn't know things had gotten so out of hand." Still, she said nothing. And then he said it. "You have to understand. It's not easy for her. My wife, she didn't mean it. She gets overwhelmed." That was the moment Amara looked up, really looked at him. Her voice didn't shake. She meant every word. And you heard her. He flinched. She continued, slowly, each word like a match lit in the dark. She said she didn't want a black child in her house. And you, my father, stood there and said nothing. The silence that followed was different this time. Not passive, not accidental. Heavy. Reckoning. He tried to speak, but she raised a hand. "I'm not here for an apology. I'm here because I finally understand something. I am not hard to love. I'm not dangerous. I'm not a burden. I am your daughter. But if you can't see me, if you can't protect me, then maybe I need to protect myself." She stood up. Her father stared at the floor, unable to lift his head. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just said the words she had waited years to say. "I needed you, and you chose her silence over my pain." She left the room without slamming the door, without looking back. Outside, the cold bit at her fingers again, but it didn't feel the same, because this time she wasn't running from something. She was walking towards something. Something she couldn't name yet, but felt in her bones. Maybe not a home. Maybe not yet. But a path. Her own. The days that followed weren't smooth. Healing rarely is. At the care home, the sun didn't always shine, and her thoughts didn't always make sense. There were mornings Amara couldn't get out of bed, afternoons where her silence felt heavier than the world, and nights she stared at the ceiling, wondering if any of this had really happened, or if she had made it all up. But even in the chaos of her thoughts, something had shifted. People spoke to her like she mattered. Staff asked what she wanted for dinner. They called her by her name, not the girl or that child, just Amara. And that simple act of naming, of being seen, it softened the tight knot in her chest, little by little. She started journaling. At first it was scribbles, short thoughts, broken sentences. But over time, it turned into something else. Letters to her mother, poems about her skin, dreams she had locked away and now dared to say out loud. One night she wrote, "I am not what they said I was. I am what she, my real mother, knew I'd become." That night, she slept deeply for the first time in weeks. At school, word had spread quietly that Amara was living somewhere else for now. Most didn't ask questions, but some teachers treated her more gently. One girl from her class, Lena, left a note in her locker. No explanation, just 3 words. "You are magic." Amara kept it folded in her pocket like a secret spell. When the opportunity came to give a speech at the school's Diversity Day event, the staff asked her if she wanted to share anything. She hesitated at first. The thought of standing in front of a room full of eyes made her stomach twist. But she remembered that cold kitchen, that broken glass, that voice that said she didn't belong. And then she remembered her own voice, that room at the care home, the words that spilled out of her like truth breaking through ice. She said yes. She stood on that stage, hands trembling, knees weak, and told her story. Not with bitterness, but with truth. She didn't name names. She didn't need to. The weight of her words filled the auditorium. She spoke of erasure, of silence that hurts more than violence, of being the only black girl in a house where her skin was treated like a stain. She spoke of survival. But more importantly, she spoke of becoming. When she was finished, the room didn't clap immediately. They were too still, too stunned. And then, slowly, hands came together. The entire room stood. Even the teachers, even the principal, who wiped a tear from his cheek. And from the back of the room, in the farthest corner, someone stood watching. Her father. He looked older, smaller, as if the weight of what he hadn't done finally caught up to him. Amara saw him, and for a second, she waited for a nod, a word, an apology. But none came. Only eyes, wet and open. It was enough. She didn't need him to speak anymore, because she had found her own voice. After the assembly, students came up to her, some black, some white, some in between, some with tears, some with rage, but all of them said the same thing. Thank you for saying what we couldn't. Weeks passed, then months. Amara stayed at the care home a while longer. Her caseworker found her a long-term foster family. A couple, 2 women, both teachers, welcomed her in with open arms, warm soup, and walls covered in books and photos of smiling mixed families. The first night there, one of them tucked her in. She hadn't been tucked in since she was 8. Before she turned off the light, the woman looked at her and said, "You're safe here. You always will be." Amara didn't cry. She just nodded, and for the first time in a long, long time, she believed it. As the seasons changed, so did she. Her hair grew longer, her posture straighter. She spoke more in class, laughed harder at jokes, danced during lunch breaks. She started a blog for other teens in care called Brown Girl Whole. She got a message one day from a girl across the country. It read, "Your story made me feel less alone." And that, more than anything, was the moment Amara knew she hadn't just survived. She had risen. Years later, she stood in her own apartment, surrounded by bookshelves and plants and color, and read an old entry from that first journal. The page was yellowed, the handwriting a little shaky, but the words still clear. "I am not hard to love. I am made of love, and if they cannot see that, I will love myself enough to carry me through." And just like that, she closed the book, smiled, and turned toward the sunlight streaming through her window. Because once, a woman had said, "I don't want a black child in my house." And now that child had built a life no one could take from her.